Whoops, where's my video? There's my video, and why am I way off to one side? Well, let's see. I try to keep the window out of it. Let's see if I can just things that happened at the last minute. But welcome aboard. Oh, the chat's already busy. Hey, Terrence, Brian Smith, Dungeon Master Masterclass. Nice to see everybody. Terrence, I'm at my craptastic job. Well, you know, my job. Actually, I'm enjoying my job right now. It might change. So far, it's pretty good, and I'm doing it from home. So got that as well. Yes, Brian Smith, the horn. Love the horn. Sunny 52-degree day for you, not for me. It's probably in the 50s, but it's not. It is definitely not sunny. Let me see if I can help the camera out here. Let there be light. There we go. Maybe help a little bit. Now I've got a giant white spot. Well, welcome to the Reddit read along. I don't have any programming notes. Oh, yes, I do. Hey, Cockatrice Nuggets, welcome. Tomorrow I will be on Bandit's Keep stream if everything goes according to Hoyle, so I shan't be here. So this will be my last stream on my channel for the week, but if everything holds up, I'll be over there. And if something happens and I can't be over there, then I'll be back here with something. So that's why I'm running this today. Without further ado, let me go ahead and give the hot tab a refresh. Oh, what do we got? Where's my glasses here? And feel free, if you guys in the chat see something, I always say this, and maybe not always, but nobody really takes me up on it. If you see me scrolling past something that you guys think is interesting that I'm not seeing the significance of, shout it out to me. Let me know. I'll grab it. All right. Mar Barker of Tecumseh and Empire of the Petal Throne wrote a neo-Nazi novel in 91. I'm not going to go into that. I actually have some of the Tecumseh stuff, but I haven't really gotten into it much. I'll skip that one at the moment. Let's see. Demon Lord Crypt, a map. I'll give it an upvote. Looks cool. Let's go in. Why not? Let's take a look. Why do they always put it so small? Oh, yeah, I got to remember to up my... All right, let's see. Okay, well, even zoomed in. All right, this is really small, and there's nothing to see here because the text is unreadable. All right, let's see if there's a link to something more substantive there. Let's see in the comments, maybe? No. Is this look, if I click on this some other way, is it going to look bigger? I mean, it looks cool. Would love a link so I can check it out in bigger. I'm guessing this is on itch somewhere, but they didn't put that in that I can see. Okay. Well, it looks cool, but I can't do anything with that. But I need to give it an upvote. Were original advanced D&D designed to be massively multiplayer RPGs? That's a video. I'm not sure what that means since those terms didn't really exist back then. But I suppose in a sense, the way they were played, in a way, yes, because you had those big groups that were running big groups who were running multiple parties with multiple GMs through shared campaign worlds. So in a way, yes. My partner helped me draw a little vampire. Okay, a 3D dungeon master. Let's see. What's the lightest OSR with race as class? I guess I'm interested to see what they're asking. I'm presuming this is a question. I mean, BX is pretty darn light. But I guess if you want to get even lighter, Meat Boy suggests Searchers of the Unknown. Labyrinth Lord Basic, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Our OSE, I guess. Okay, not that much going on there. Not too much. It says OSR creators really love digest size and eye strain fonts. For sure. I mean, I like digest size, but yeah, at a certain point you have to keep in mind what you're trying to do, right? Don't let your format be the dictator of everything. Or you know, if you're making something with a lot of detail in an image, don't make it tiny. But in this case, I think they're trying to push people. I guess we're referring back to that map. I assume they're trying to push people. Hey, look, there's me. And look at that. I posted that I'm streaming in here. So I can stream myself, looking at myself streaming. And of course, I got downvoted. Thanks, Reddit. Look at that. I show Reddit love. I feel like all the time. And how does Reddit repay me? With a downvote. Never change, folks. Never change. I'm making something. Primal Quest Essentials. That's a cover reveal. I don't know anything about that. What if, oh, here we go. What if you don't fudge your rolls? This, I think, sounds like something that's going to be speaking to the choir, because my guess is that if I took a poll of most OSR folks, they're not huge roll fudgers, but let's see where this takes us. All right, I'll read it from Reddit, but here I will post, let's let the guy get some traffic to his blog. This was posted on the Methods and Madness, Methods Madness blog. What if you don't fudge your rolls? And there's the link, throw it in the chat. Get to hear my wonderful keyboard. Let me see. Come on, where's the YouTube one so I can, there we go. Did I get, what the heck happened there? Here we go. All right, something happened with the order of the comments there where my comment got moved. Strange. Anyway, here we go. You are the DM. The encounter is harder than you expected, and things are going south fast. You ask yourself if you made an error when calculating the challenge rating. Don't feel bad. Challenge rating is not an exact science, and it simply doesn't work sometimes. Maybe the PCs were too inexperienced to know that a dragon is too strong for them. Or maybe the dragon appeared as a random encounter, not the fault of the players. You don't want a TPK on your hands, especially if it is unfair. So maybe you change the dragon's hit points, or maybe you fudge a few rolls so that the players can survive just barely until the monster is defeated. Voila, crisis averted. Let's hope the next fight is easier. Fair enough, this is one style of play. It is popular in some circles and quite unpopular in others, mainly OSR. Let's say it is a matter of taste. However, there is another style. You don't fudge your rolls. Let the dice fall where they may. What happens? This will force you out of your comfort zone. Out of your comfort zone links to something, looks like some other blog post, but they don't say what. Into difficult positions and creates lots and lots of questions. First, the players will soon realize they're not safe anymore. They must pick their battles carefully and use strategy wisely. Is it a good idea to start a fight that we don't know we can win? Maybe paying 1 gold piece for the bridge troll is cheaper than risking death. The next monster we encounter might be the wrong challenge rating for us. Maybe we should talk before attacking. Or maybe find out the monster is hungry or defending its offspring. But worse, PCs are subject to being attacked by a stronger monster they cannot defeat in a random encounter. So they must learn to retreat, hide, negotiate, or even surrender. And even harder, they must find ways to avoid being exposed in the wilderness for too long. Maybe ask around for rumors to see what they might find in their travels, or hire guides and even guards when exploring. And the DM is also forced to answer some questions. Will the NPC negotiate or accept surrender? Now you must ask yourself why the NPCs are fighting. And you often realize not every fight is to the death. Beasts defending their territory and even automatons defending treasures are likely to stay put if you run away. Humanoids will prefer ransom to bloodshed. Undead becomes scarier, although outrunning a zombie is not that hard. In older versions of D&D, you can use food or gold to distract enemies. They prefer the prize to the fight. What is the NPC looking for? Few creatures are purely killing machines, and fewer will willingly fight to their own deaths. If you don't use morality rules, use common sense. Will that goblin still fight on despite seeing his 9 allies fall to 4 strong PCs? The answer is probably not. And when he does, it will be memorable. This post and my Teratogenicon try to answer these questions. All right, we don't know what they are. Those are links to other things. I have no idea what a Teratogenicon is, but maybe we can look at it at the end. In any case, now every fight is unpredictable, not only for the players, but also for the DM. You no longer have the burden of control. You let the dice do that for you. Relax and enjoy. Use the time you usually spend fudging with math and dice to think about tactics, motives, and NPC reactions. Once you know you do not control the outcome, you can feel free to root for your favorite team, hopefully the PCs. And maybe all these things will not prevent a PC from dying. Sometimes the PC has a cause he or she is willing to die for. It might be an epic ending to the PC saga or a tragic accident. In any case, now we will see that the game as a whole is bigger than any single PC. We can create a new PC and get around to destroy the big bad guy. Or maybe this is the story about how the kingdom was lost. As you can see, not fudging rolls is more complex than fudging. But I'd say you should try it. All these questions will spark the creativity of players and DMs alike, and it will change your game forever. You may want to go back to fudging just a few rolls later on, although, in my experience, this is a slippery slope. See what style you prefer. Let me repeat a recent story. I am currently running a written campaign using a new RPG system the players had never tried, nor had I. In the very first adventure, they were almost wiped out by 2 random thugs and a ghoul. They had no fault in the matter. They couldn't have known, again, nor did I, although I had mentioned the system was dark and gritty and the PCs were level 0, but I ran the encounter as written, and it did set the tone for the whole campaign. It was a dark game. My opinion would be very different if I was going for a funny campaign, for example. Anyway, there's much more to be discussed. Just how hard is it to create a new PC? Maybe you don't want to spend a couple of hours every couple of sessions doing that. I know I don't. Or maybe you think beginner players shouldn't be subject to PC death, and that may lead them to believe that PCs never die. Maybe you like to leave PC death on the table, but also use tools to revert it. There might be a reason in the setting the PCs cannot die. Maybe they are cursed to fight on and on until they win, like Dark Souls or another video game. Or change the system a bit. Change the death save DC, or rule that creatures reduced to 0 hit points are just unconscious until someone willingly kills them. I once had a game where a PC would only die if he chose to enter a battle to the death. The player would explicitly say, "My PC is willing to die for this." This is what my house rules about sacrifice are about, by the way. Another link to something else. Or maybe you like permanent wounds and maiming, and you can offer the PC a choice between dismembering and death when the time comes. Make sure the players are on board with this before you start the game. And then there is resurrection, reincarnation, time travel, clones, descents into the abyss, or deals with death itself. The possibilities are endless. Fudging dice is only one of them, and not particularly interesting, in my opinion. And then they've got some further reading from, it looks like their website. Extremely simple combat maneuvers, 12 things I wish I'd known, so on and so forth. Let's see, did I give this an upvote? No, I'll go ahead. I mean, I really think that this is kind of preaching to the choir for OSR, and which is fine. I definitely would be interesting if they posted the same blog and say a 5th edition forum, what the response would be. I'm guessing it would be more divided, or even maybe potentially a slightly bit hostile. I think you could argue. I mean, look, they're not trying to make an argument for both sides, right? They're arguing that, hey, fudging is simple. I don't think it has to be. I'm sure there are people who fudge dice who revel in the complexity and the things like that. I think that fudging lends itself to that more cinematic feel. I've mentioned before these examples, and I feel like they're a little bit self-serving and they're kind of cherry-picked, but, the dragon fight ends when it becomes, unfun or uninteresting. As soon as it becomes uninteresting, I end the fight, basically saying that, look, it lasts as long as it's fun and exciting, and when it gets boring, then you end it. Now, I don't actually think that that's a bad thing. You don't have to fudge dice to get there. I've said this often enough, especially when using things like morale, reactions, and just common sense. If you're in a situation where you have two sides beating on each other and neither side needs to be making progress, you should probably have something happen. Either somebody should decide, look, we're at a stalemate, so why don't we talk about it, or make a fighting retreat, or some kind of change in tactics. It doesn't have to be, well, now I'm going to fudge dice to make something happen. You can let things happen, but it's very much a philosophical thing. But they posted to OSR, and of course, I feel like in the OSR space, if anything, people are going to go like, duh. Well, of course we don't fudge dice. Of course we embrace all these tools, because that's kind of part of the whole OSR ethos. Cockatrice Nugget says, I like to roll in the open. And Cockatrice Nugget also says, I've fudged for newer players in 5e and have adjusted HP/attack/damage during combat. And then Dungeon Masterclass says, one thing I like with not fudging rolls is that the PCs learn they can't do everything. So when an NPC says, please, a dragon kidnapped my daughter, the players don't just think, that must be the adventure. Instead, they think, can we really fight a dragon? Yeah. And I think even beyond that Dungeon Masterclass, even if I think they felt like, ooh, this is our adventure, they may start thinking about, well, we can't fight the dragon, so we got to come up with some other methods, because clearly we are not meant to, or we know that we are not capable of defeating a dragon. So now we got to think about, can we lure it out of its hideout and then sneak the princess off that way? Can we bargain with it? Can we offer it something else in exchange? What can we do, because it's not necessarily fated in the cards that we're going to be able to win. And then, and so here, kind of echoing my point, why Manderley says, reading 5e forums can be a whole different game sometimes. Yeah, I'll give him up to it, because, it's true. Hey, Ironcaster, happy Thursday to you as well. Cockatrice Nugget says, when I played in the 90s, I was all about stories and would fudge player rolls at times. Now I don't roll if I want something to happen without failure. I mean, that's another key thing. You can get around this whole thing by saying, look, and this is kind of that same idea of blocking your progress. If they need to get through the door to get to the next part of the dungeon and there's no other way in there, don't have them roll for the door. Because if they roll for the door and fail, or something similar, the obstacle, then unless you have a fail forward kind of mechanism, you're just blocking your own progress. And I would say, too, if it's not creating an interesting situation, don't have them roll, because nothing's worse than you just fumbling to try to. It's that kind of pixel hunting thing. Well, the GM has one particular thing in mind. Maybe you already got there, but then I failed the roll. As a player, I don't know that was the one thing. So now I'm just fishing around. And the GM, you're going, well, I just need them to try that again, and maybe they'll get it, but they failed. Like, don't put yourself in that weird spot. Let's see. This one's got this. Like, what was it? Commenter has a longer reply, which might be interesting. I'll give him an upvote. This is, I don't even want to. Y0J1M80. I don't even want to speculate on how I'm supposed to pronounce that. Like Yojimato? I don't know. I think this comes from a few things, but a big one is quote unquote input versus quote unquote output randomness. Perhaps an overgeneralization, but in 5e, the general flow is the GM providing a situation, the players generating a solution, and rolling to see if it succeeds. The randomness is heavily weighted towards action resolution to see how a situation ends. This style of randomness has been coined output randomness by Jeff Engelstein. I don't know. In the OSR, randomness tends to happen much earlier in random encounter tables, random spell effects, etc. Similar to some card games, the randomness is in the hand you draw, but from that point on, you largely have total control. Of course, the referee may still call for rolls to resolve certain situations, and combat also tends to lean towards the output randomness end of things still, but many scenarios can be resolved without dice. 5e is also about role-playing as superheroes and tends to lean towards cinematic storytelling. Having them perish from a stray arrow or by the blade of a weak goblin could ruin that fantasy, hence the temptation to fudge rolls in service of a more script-like narrative. I prefer input randomness and emergent narrative, and the very real threat of character death makes me play more carefully and strategically, which is why I enjoy OSR and no fudging compared to 5th edition. I do think it's unfortunate that many people's only experience with tabletop role-playing games will be 5th edition, and therefore with only one style of play. This is not system bashing. Regardless of my preferences, I just wish more people got a chance to feel what OSR style, itself far from a monolith, play can offer. Yep, very good ideas. And I had not heard those terms, input and output randomness. Those are good things. And someone else points out that this would probably be more useful to those playing 5th edition, which I agree for. Not that it's not good to have a discussion point, but I just think that in the OSR forums posting that it's almost karma farming, because so many people are going to be in agreement with this sentiment. But good stuff. Oh, and I didn't even mention this is posted by Eric Diaz, DOTD, deal of the day. Eric Diaz, deal of the day, maybe? There we go. Let's see. Where was that? Hey, someone gave me back an upvote. Now I'm back to square one, but thank you, whoever that was. Thank you, beautiful stranger. Need help creating a magic item. I don't really know if I have too much to say about that. Ooh, Dying Earth adventure locations. Since we've been doing, and if you're in here and you haven't been following along with our Appendix N book club where we're doing the Dying Earth, shame on you. Come join us for some Dying Earth talk. I don't really have much to offer here, but let's see what they're looking for. This was posted by Non-Dairy Giant. I'm looking for an adventure or adventures to use in a Vancian Dying Earth. Specifically, I'm looking for a futuristic tower or city like Empredatvir from the Dying Earth. I've heard Numenera adventures might be up my alley, but I can't really get a clear picture of what adventures they have available and what their contents actually are. Any help would be greatly appreciated. And then let's see. Medical Mystery Tour mentions anomalous subsurface environment, which is good. I don't know if it really hits the kind of, I mean, it is that whole fantasy by way of science fiction kind of thing, but I don't know that it would. I mean, I'm only in. Someone mentioned here. So I have the first ASE, the first anomalous subsurface environment. So I don't know about other stuff. It sounds like there's actually killer clowns, which is awesome. Okay, the second floor has a circus freak show. Oh, all right. Wow, I don't know. But yeah, the first level is really good. Maybe it gets more gonzo the deeper you go. Institutionalized Toy says, I think it's going to be pretty hard to find adventures you can plug in and play that will fit the tone and setting of the Dying Earth. You might be better off finding a few cool maps of futuristic towers and cities and crafting your own science fantasy adventures. Alternatively, finding a few regular old fantasy towers or city maps you like and bolt on the science fantasy elements you're interested in. Another idea, take a few OSR adventures and just reskin them with weird science fantasy elements. Yeah, I think that's probably what I would do. I can't think of any particular. So we haven't gotten into the stories yet. We've only read the first couple, which haven't gotten into some of the more cities. And in the environments that we've seen, they're pretty much fantasy with maybe just a few things that we might call science fantasy. So, for example, we just looked at yesterday the Mazirian the Magician, and in his manse, as they call these kind of, they're not even real. They're not described as towers. I imagine them more as kind of mansions or maybe sort of maybe colonial estates is kind of the vision I get in my brain, but I don't even know. They're not necessarily towers, but he had fanciful gardens and he had vats, which also Turgeon, in the first story we read, Turgeon also had vats in his kind of laboratory, but that was really the only thing that came across as more science fictiony or science fantasy than straight fantasy. And even that, it's not that big of a stretch, seeing all the kind of alchemical stuff that tends to be in wizard labs, and then it's really just more about that kind of atmosphere of a dying planet, which I don't know that you need an adventure to tell you. Non-dairy giant, the I believe is the right there, the OP says that they really stall out when trying to describe and populate modern spaces. Dungeons are like nice and contained, but when I've run cyberpunk games or post-apocalyptic stuff, trying to make an office building or old school and interesting place to explore has been really a problem. Right, Smith says, "Na na 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 na, Batman." I gotta show that one. I like it. And we had that Vat, and Brian Smith, the Vatman came out and he was kind of dull. Vatman needed another. I think Vatman needed another pass in the I don't know what we would call that, the vivification fluids, the juices of life. And as to non-dairy giants' comment about trying to make an office building or an old school interesting, I think the thing is, and something to keep in mind in terms of the Dying Earth or any kind of post-apocalyptic thing, if you were going to do say Thundar, is play around with not, and maybe they do this already, with not telling the players what it is. Don't just say, well, it used to be an office building. Don't say you see the ruins of an office building. Really describe it. Get some photos going to Google or whatever search engine, DuckDuckGo, whichever one that has an image search engine, and pull up things like office towers. You can even pull up ones that are partly ruined or have been half destroyed or after an earthquake or some kind of natural disaster, so you can kind of see what they look like. Talk about the metal and the glass. Differentiate how it's different than maybe what the players have been used to. If they're used to, this is a post-apocalyptic setting. Maybe they live in stone, back to stone, and things like that, and maybe simple brick. And now they're seeing these like huge twisted metal ruins with lots of glass and other things. The colors could be interesting as well. Don't call it a schoolhouse, but maybe think about, well, what might all the desks look like if someone didn't really know what a kid's, if you look at those classic old school kids desks with a chair and the desk is kind of together in one piece. Now imagine it 1,000 years later, maybe a lot of the wood is rotted away. And so you just have this kind of weird, looks like almost a paddle at the end of a metal piece. Really kind of get into those descriptions and think about, again, describing them from, you don't know what a schoolhouse is. It doesn't mean anything to you. Even if you know what they are in terms of your, whatever the world is now, this building doesn't necessarily read to you as schoolhouse right away. So it's just this kind of building. And there are all those photographers, and I'm sure on, again, different image search engines and places like Flickr that have all those, I forget what they call those people who go into ruined places or abandoned places and will take all kinds of pictures and things. So you can see what it looks like when, say, a sanatorium, a school, an office building, or a mall has been abandoned for 30, 40, 50 years, and people have gone in there and taken pictures of them. And then you can use that as inspiration for, now sure, you may have to make it even worse. So it's not just 30 years just laying in the grass, but through a nuclear holocaust or some kind of magical explosions, and now it's 1,000 years instead of 50 years. But you can get an idea of, well, what does it look like when this stuff's just kind of let rotting kind of in situ, and then use that to draw the descriptions out, and play with that, and let your players see that, and they will get interested in it, because if you just say, oh, it's a schoolhouse, they're going to, okay, and they're just going to kind of take things for granted. If you don't, if you talk about how they enter these classrooms, and I'm going to use an older example because I think things are mostly whiteboard driven now, right? But there's you imagine how you could describe a blackboard as something smooth like basalt, with white carvings. It looks like someone scratched a stone or something across it and made carvings, and maybe the carvings are even gone now, right? That something weird like that, like, whoa, it's like, they might even think, like, is this a screen? Is this like some kind of weird metal? Like, what is it? Like, it's a dull black surface, perfectly smooth. Ooh, what is that? Like, that's really interesting. It's just a blackboard, but without the kind of context that we're used to, suddenly it becomes something a lot more intriguing. And feed that to your players and see where that comes from. But use references, find references for what you're trying to do, and then feed them in. And I think that will go a long way, and maybe spark your imagination, and get your kind of brain thinking. Oh, Brian Smith, homunk you very much. And here, Terrence has gotten to you, hasn't he, Brian Smith? Because those are, I feel like that is a Terrence comment if ever I read one. And then Brian Smith also says you can apply naturalistic terms with modern materials, like a dense forest of metallic pillars or a cairn of discarded desktop monitors. Absolutely, Terrence. And then Terrence adds slate. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. I think the main thing, it seems like maybe the issue they're running into is finding that inspiration. And that's where I think using image tools. I mean, it's the same thing people do as artists. A lot of times artists don't just draw things from their memory, but they go and they'll cobble together a bunch of photos that have the sorts of elements that they want to have in their drawing or their artwork, and then they put them together, and do the same thing. Make a little scrapbook or a collage. Use an online tool like the Google has those kind of, not Google presentations, but what is it called, Google Board or whatever, where you can just make a mood board or a thought board and put a bunch of that stuff in there on your monitor if you're playing online, or if you have your phone or a tablet if you're playing in person, or your laptop. And then when they're getting these places, bring up your sort of inspiration mood board that has all these different pieces of art and photos on there, and then use those to draw from. All right. That was Dying Earth Adventure Locations, posted by Non-Dairy Giant. Let's see. Oh, got another upvote. Woohoo! I don't really care that much about the upvotes, but it really bugs me when someone just downvotes something I don't even know what it is. You know what? I can't even remember the last time I downvoted something, because if it's not to my interest, I just scroll by. I don't need to drive by and hit it with a downvote just because. OS/OSR history must see spot London. I don't know what that is. High production, high quality books. All right, we'll go to I Made a Thing. I made a thing. Give it an upvote. This is posted by Agile Tension 2551. Factory Nugget says, I downvote on moral issues. Okay. I can respect that. Agile Tension 2551 says, I like magic items that can make BX thieves more effective in their role, especially at low levels, where they struggle to be more than the backstab specialist and climb the wall specialist. The Sigil of Authority is designed to help any character, but it's a natural fit for thieves. Be the infiltration specialist. They posted this to the Substack. Let's take a look. Just want to make sure it opens in another tab. All right, I will post this. Get rid of some of that stuff. So this is the BX Bandits Substack. Magical treasure. Sigil of Authority. And then Ian says, going back to downvoting, how dare you disagree with my viewpoint? I'm not going to read your obviously wrong post. Downvote. I really think that's a lot of it. Or I even know it's like embittered. People are embittered, like, like how dare you promote something to me? And in my case, I'm literally promoting, trying to bring people here to promote the Reddit, and I thought people might be interested. It seems like a lot of people on the Reddit maybe don't know that I come here and do stuff about the Reddit. I literally thought, hey, some people might dig it. But you know what? They do not. Fair enough. All right, so this is called. I gotta stop saying all right so much. I have some words I say way too often. I'm trying to phase out of my speech patterns, and all right is at the top of the list, along with so, and there's a few other ones. A sigil of authority is a jewel-encrusted amulet giving its wearer the ability to pass as an authority figure in the eyes of those they encounter. Individuals within 60 feet must save versus spells or believe the wearer possesses the authority they claim and treat them accordingly. Victims will overlook slips and oversights, e.g., the wearer dresses inappropriately, forgets passwords and protocols, or doesn't recognize others in the hierarchy they have infiltrated. But behavior that is wildly out of character for the wearer's pretended position allow a new saving throw. For instance, if the wearer pretends to be an inquisitor of the realm to gain access to the party's imprisoned cleric, but then orders the prison guards to unlock the cleric's chains and release them, the guards will receive a new saving throw to see through the deception. The sigil may not be used to impersonate a particular individual who is known by sight to those encountered. The wearer, for example, may impersonate an inquisitor of the realm in front of the prison guards, but not the Grand Inquisitor Ackley Chatham, who visits the prison on a regular basis to interrogate inmates. Victims will remain enchanted until they save, the effect is dispelled, the wearer cancel it, or the sigil is removed. I'm torn. I'm torn like an old sweater. Brian Smith says seems fiddly. Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. I mean, we've talked at length about the thief, or I've talked, and other people have listened about the thief, and I think different ways to make them more effective in BX. I would rather say, look, have that a greater amount of leeway in their basic things. Impersonation or disguise, I don't think is one of the things that they even have skills for. Is it? Am I forgetting? We've got sort of what a backstab. There's climb, hide in shadows, and move silently. I think those are the four. Is there a disguise? Impersonate one of them. So this isn't to me buffing the things that the default thief does so much as giving them a magical ability, which is fine. And I mean, it's an amulet, and I think one thing is we don't know. I don't have a sense of when this is supposed to. This is, I guess, I'm stumbling over myself. I don't have a sense from the GM if they imagine this is something they're going to be giving away to them, or if it's just something that goes in the mix. I mean, as just an item, it's fine. I wonder. I guess I think you could use a little bit more explanation. So if I am a thief, do I need to dress up as the Inquisitor? Is this a illusion, a physical illusion, so that when I put it on and I am an Inquisitor of the realm, like even though I'm wearing, say, my pajamas, to them it looks like I'm wearing the red robes of the Inquisitor. Do I need to still do that? Is it more of a mental thing that if I'm wearing the habit that belongs, or the trappings of this person or this kind of class of person, that then I pass? It's kind of vague as to what it's actually doing. 60 feet seems like a lot. I might, especially if it's not physical, because it says that, and it passes as an authority figure in the eyes of those they encounter. But if I haven't said to that person, I am an Inquisitor, I haven't even made the claim yet, do I have to make the claim? Do I have to, the other thing is, do I need to, so I guess let me back up. One, if I put the sigil of authority in there, do I need to say who I'm claiming to be? Or just are people going to see me as an authority figure based on my clothes, based on their own imaginations? So again, I'm in my pajamas and I approach some guards because, like, who am I to them? So I'm an authority figure, but I haven't even declared to myself, or do I have to declare what I am? Or is it just that the guards may see me as an Inquisitor, or they may see me as a higher guards person, higher up in the food chain, a sergeant instead of a guard? Like, what do they see me as? What triggers them having to save? because at 60 feet, I think that if I'm a thief and I'm dressed in the red robes of an Inquisitor of the Realm, at 60 feet, the guards are just going to look and say, "Oh, that's a Inquisitor of the Realm." They don't. I don't need the. To me, it wouldn't be a thing of magic. It's just okay. I mean, 60 feet's not that close. You're not right up on them. They can't. Possibility they can't even really see your face. They just kind of see you almost in silhouette moving around. I'm okay with that. Like, okay, there's the Grand Inquisitor of the Realm. He's wearing the robes. That's what they do. To me, this only would come in when you get closer, like when they have to interact with you, that they do that. And then maybe I would say that the Sigil Authority might work when you make a claim, then they make the save. If they fail the save, they take you at your claim. I do like the idea that you have to, it can't be someone specific, but I want to know what is this illusion? Is it like, is it in, what is it exactly? Because it's not at all clear. Let's see. Ooh, got a bunch of comments on this one. Let me get back up. Ian says, not aware of disguise as any sort of hard skill until 3rd edition. On the Dungeon Master Masterclass says it was in 2nd edition as well. Brian Smith says, determining when the tricked person calls BS seems muddy to me to run or use as a PC. Yeah, I think that could be. I like, again, I think it's made it much better if it triggers once you actually claim to be something. You're on approach, someone makes and you kind of outwardly make a claim to the victims, like this, like it's triggered by saying, the guards say, "Who are you?" And I say, "Oh, I'm an Inquisitor of the Realm." Then, like, bam, that's when you make the save, which means a lot more simple, and it kind of forces, I guess, or at least makes plain that the PC is engaging with it and suggesting who they are. If you wanted to do it as kind of because it could be a whole different item if you want to have it that, hey, you blend in with whomever you're around. So guards look at you and just see another guard or something like that. It could be interesting too. Ian says, this would be neat if it was a purpose-made magic item to pose as a specific organization member. Yeah, you could totally do that too if you wanted to. A counterfeit badge. Brian Smith says, yeah, Brian Smith agrees, but says a legit counterfeit badge is just as good though. Yeah, it would be. And that's maybe the other thing that I would say I don't like about it is it seems to be ending around a lot of stuff that's fun for both the GM and the player, which is that kind of part and parcel of these kinds of infiltration things, which is finding the costume, getting the cover story, all those things. And I would rather that this as an item maybe it maybe opened up new possibilities and just saying, oh, we're kind of going to hand wave that away. But that's me. Let's see. Ian says it's like a canned suggestion spell with a semi-permanent area effect. Yep, could be. And then Terrence says, guess it's like psychic paper from Doctor Who. The viewer interacts with you according to their own perception of someone deserving respect and deference. Yeah, that's actually a good way to look at it. It would just be nice if it was clear kind of how that was working. But I wouldn't want it to take away that what I think is the fun stuff, which is getting the disguise and kind of getting your cover and all those kinds of things. Dungeon Master Masterclass says it takes away a fun option for a non-fun option. Impersonating someone with your wits is fun. Impersonating someone because of a magic item description says so is less fun, but the item is fine, not great. Yep, I agree with you. Oh, Nightbot got Brian Smith again. I didn't even notice what your trespass was, Brian Smith, but clearly Nightbot has it out for you. Nightbot is to Brian Smith what Reddit is to me sometimes. That was from BX Bandits. Good job on them. I did upvote them. And then someone actually mentions, Terrence, I'm guessing that Shatter Spike 1 on Reddit is not one of your identities. Also mentions Psychic Paper. All right, I realized I had 2 windows open. Give it a refresh just to see. Look at that. I lost an upvote. I was up to 3. Now I'm down to 2 again. You see? Come on, Reddit. Just when I thought you were on my side, you stabbed me in the back like Nightbot. Let's see. Ian asks if I've seen Questing Beast's last video on the quote-unquote original mode of play and open tables. Worth a discussion. I have not. Maybe I'll need to check it out. Oh, Brian Smith. Brian Smith shouted downvote and got sniped. Yeah, see, any mention of downvoting anywhere in my chat should get sniped. That one's on you, Brian Smith. Ian says it required the hair or some personal affect of a legit member to make. Oh, you're talking about the psychic paper? Or is that something else, Ian? But yeah, I think if I was gonna have it be something like that, that would be interesting because at least then maybe you don't have to get the whole costuming, but now you have to get a hair of an Inquisitor of the Realm, which is opens up kind of the same avenues. But yeah, I'm totally on board with the concept that I don't want my magic items to just be eliminating modes of play that are fun for kind of a hand wave. Someone posts, let's see, senders aren't humans. Troy could venture inside the character's mindscape. That's a map. I'm not ready for that. The oceans are endless on Meridian, a new mothership adventure design. I'll give them upvotes, but I'm not. I don't think there's. I think it's just a launch thing, so there's not really anything for me to look at. D10 unpickable locks. We'll check it out. Let's go to the comments, and then I will go to the from Whose Measure blogspot.com. D10 unpickable locks. Let's get that in. Feel free to go there. All right, that'll show up in the chat. So you can check out the link and see it in person. Let me just get it up on the display. There we go. Posted, let's see, when was this? March 14th, so a couple days ago, as I'm recording this at least. D10 Unpickable Locks. Don't see the author. This is by Phlox. Some old school dungeon modules had the bad habit of including secret doors, unspoken trap mechanisms, unpickable locks, and other keyed items that make sense in a certain game procedure, but that lack vital information for understanding them in a fiction-forward game. When I designed game elements like these, oh, you know what? Let me, before I get up, I forget who it was that had, oh, no, that's the wrong one. Hold on a minute. Let me make sure I'm on the right window. Let me zoom in. I think we said 150. There we go. I try to remember people have asked things of me. Somebody asked me to bump up the size of the font in here, so here we go. Apologize for forgetting until now. When I design game elements like these, returning to Phlox, I ensure I have an idea of how they're supposed to function in the fiction of the game world so I can reliably respond when a player describes interacting with that element. Without knowing that a secret door has some kind of seam or handle or trigger, I can't represent an investigation of the idea around that door outside of the searching for secret doors procedure. In some ways, the problem is worse for a lock that the text deems unpickable. Both the average player and the average DM have little theoretical knowledge of how a lock, modern or medieval, functions. The player doesn't know how to approach a lock from a fiction-forward angle once their lock-picking roll has flatly denied, or was flatly denied, and if they did, a DM likely couldn't elaborate. Here I offer 10 good enough justifications for a door to be considered unpickable. That shouldn't be too jarring to apply if you notice at the last minute that it's listed as such in the room description. Since the PC attempting to pick a lock is presumably proficient in doing so, err on the side of telling them all about the mechanisms of the lock before them. As it is said, any locking mechanism is also an unlocking mechanism, so these can all be theoretically bypassed with significant effort, which, remember, OSRly is a good thing. I don't think I've heard that like that before as, I guess, an adverb. Anything below that would be deemed implausible by a real-world expert is acknowledged and accepted. And we have a picture of a cylinder lock. So we have D10 unpickable locks. Should I read through these? Where are we on time? And Brian Smith says he asked if I could pump up the jams. Yes, I can. And Dungeon Master Masterclass about that diagrams. Is it serious? Is this for GMs? Or real for RPGs or for real locksmiths? I think that's probably a real locksmith thing that they found in a book. Because yeah, I think it's just a good illustration of kind of how a real lock works. So I guess my interesting thing on this is that I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I guess I haven't found it come up in a way that when locks have been unpickable, usually the excuse that I just go to is it's jammed. The mechanism, or it's jammed either through rusting, something else is stuck inside of it, just something's gone wrong. And that tends to be enough in my experience, but folks, feel free to chime in if there's something that comes up more. I confess that certainly my current game, I don't really have anybody picking locks, but I've never gotten to the like, or even in a game where I've been playing, and I've played plenty of Thieves in my day of the lock is jammed, it being a terrible thing, but I don't think it's bad, and I would say it's even a good thing to have more to it. It's just something that hasn't really occurred to me because just the kind of it's jammed just sort of has worked well enough in my experience. Hey, Fluff of the Griffin. Fluff of the Griffin says that picture's from The Way Things Work by David Macaulay. Oh, cool. That's a great book. I used to have one. I should probably get one again, even if just for my daughter. Null Terminated says, could be it requires a very specialized tool to even attempt. Could be. And then Dungeon Master Masterclass says, I don't think I've ever had an unpickable lock. Is that common? I'd never think to do that. I don't even know that it's common, really. That's another good question. I'm sure it's come up somewhere because I don't think they're just making that up out of thin air. I've definitely had things just be kind of jammed either through failed attempts and other things. But yeah, I don't know that it comes up. That's another thing. I like just even as a thing, and I don't even know how much it comes up. All right, I'm gonna go through these, but I'm maybe not read the whole paragraph for each one. But basically, number one is if you pick the lock the usual way, it will snap a trap pin into place, jamming the lock, even if the key's in it. So basically, there's something in there a trap that will make the lock just completely frozen up. 2, the lock is enchanted to only yield for a key with a matching enchantment. 3, the lock has 2 cores. 4, it has a retracting plate. 5, the cylinder curves sharply. 6, it's got additional pins, potentially magnetic. 7, the half circle faced key rotates under a metal plate as it's inserted. I don't know, that's kind of has a mechanical requirement. When the key locks a lock, the last third detaches in the cylinder. Okay, so I guess it has another. I don't know. This one also sounds like kind of a mechanical trap, but maybe that's not the intention. 9 is the pins are made from ghost bones, so it doesn't have any accurate sense. The normal ways you might jiggle a key or a lock pick into place won't work because it's made of ghost bones. And then 10, it's got 2-factor authorization. Check your mobile device for. All right, I mean those are fine. I kind of think this is more information than you need, but hey, they're good for definitely good for inspiration. Some of these seem kind of similar too, but I don't know. And these are definitely. I feel like Phlox was definitely pulling. I mean, obviously 2-factor authorization, pulling from modern things, but definitely pulling, I think, from good, probably mechanical locks and lockpick deterrents. Maybe more than you might need, but hey, who knows? Brian Smith likes the ghost bones, but they're not describing the mechanical stuff. Then also Brian Smith says there should be a god of locks. You can just say, Schlag does not like you today. Schlag, the god of locks. You have annoyed the god of locks. Yeah, I think it is the thing is with some of these, it becomes that I don't call it slippery slope because it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think there's maybe an issue of how far do you want to go down this rabbit hole of making these more deep descriptions that your player is going to just say, well, can I just do a lockpick check for that part? And I guess the answer you just go is sure. But I don't know that it opens up more because I don't necessarily want to, if I get into the lock. So this one, number 5, the lock cylinders curve sharply, requiring a key form from a tight chain. Normal picking tools cannot reach the back of the cylinder. This lock is easy to break, which renders the door inoperable. Okay. So now, as a player, I might go, well, can I just form a key from a tight chain? And me as a dungeon master, I'm kind of left with, I have no idea what forming a key from a tight chain looks like. What does that even entail? I don't know what that means. Like you need to have what, like, I am assuming we don't mean like a chains from your average industrial chain links, but more maybe a necklace chain. I mean, would you need the equivalent of a soldering iron or something else to put them together? I don't know what that means. And I don't know then if I'm supposed to go, well, sure, you can. Or, well, gee, that's going to take 5 hours or 2 days or something else. In which case, presumably, if it isn't something that I feel like going, well, yeah, you can, it's just going to take you 10 more minutes. Or it's going to take you 2 days. I guess, am I really getting to somewhere in the game that is more interesting, or is it just I'm going down a rabbit hole with kind of no real end, where in the end they're just going to go, well, we just bash down the door then because we don't have time to spend 10 days trying to manufacture a key from a tight chain, or whether they're just going to go, okay, well, I make the key with the tight chain and then I'll spend the extra 10 minutes, in which case I probably could have just said, hey, this is complex. It's going to take you 10 minutes to pick. Do you want to keep picking it or not? And just say yes or no. So, this very much your miles may vary, and I'm wondering, at least for me, is the juice worth? Is the juice you're getting out worth the extra squeezing? Yeah, I don't know, but it's cool. I mean, it's fun stuff. Dungeon Masterclass says, I get so far down that description rabbit hole, I'm in the Underdark. Yeah, kind of much. And then El Terminated says there is a real life example of that. Think of plates that have pins that connect them like a watch band. Okay. I mean, it's cool. I just don't know. I just don't know that it ends up being ultimately helpful, as opposed to just you examine it. It's really complicated. It's going to take you 20 extra minutes. Yes or no, or you're going to have to get. You're going to have to design and manufacture special tools to get in there that you can't do right here. Do you want to come back and do it? Do you want to break down the door? Do you want to go in another room? Like, to me, that stuff ends up being enough. But again, it's your miles may vary. Oh, Taryn says, how about a temporarily disjointed lock? You have to attempt to turn it at noon at midnight to get all the tumblers. I think you mean temporally as opposed to temporarily. But yeah, that would be cool. One it's kind of a moon lock or a sun lock or something else. Yeah, maybe you have to bathe the key in sunlight or moonlight, and then it will open the lock. That's good stuff there, Terrence. Me likey. All right, well, that was D10 unpickable locks. The Saracen likes those last two. And then I guess Flox's ID on Reddit must be impressment, because that is who that comes from. Good job, Flox, aka impressment. Might not be for me, but there's definitely nothing wrong with it. Someone's looking for great layout examples of 1 page or 2 OSR adventures. I'm kind of interested in this too. Let's see what we get. They're looking for, okay, Trilemma. Gray Goblin Warrens. I'll have to check those out. Trifold Pamphlets. Goblin Gully. Deadly 1-page dungeon. All right, cool. I'll have to save this. There's some cool stuff. Probably not worthwhile for in scope of the roundup. I was gonna say roundup, but what stuff? Oh, you know what? I should probably remove this since we're not talking about that anymore. Let's see. Bob Mossel. Hey, Bob says an Eldritch one, the Dreadlock. Oh boy. Terrence is getting everybody. Null Terminator says, I'd see these things as being good for repeats in a dungeon. Break down the first door, take the lock back to town, make new tool for the rest of the doors. Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, totally. Totally. I mean, I think that's something, though, again, do I need all that extra detail to do that? No, but I think the extra detail does help formulate stuff. So I think it's always good to have that stuff in the back of your brain. But I also think at some points, I think there's some things where detail can be overrated or can lead you in directions you don't want to go. And it's a lock. If it's super important, if it's the main thing around which your whole adventure is unfolding is this particular lock, this particular place, then yeah, just it's where the details should be. When you're looking at a random door that maybe came up as being locked / jammed or something else, or it's just a chest that's one of 100 other chests that it's not really important, then maybe just saying, yeah, it's jammed or whatever, it's complicated, whatever. All right, this will probably be the last one. I'll give it an upload right now. This is opinions on split side initiative plus combat phases. House rules. Always fun to look at house rules. Posted by Franfur _ opinions on split side initiative plus combat phases. Hello, everyone. I made a similar post asking for opinions on my combat phase system, but since then I have tinkered a bit with the system. Did we look at this before? We might have, but I don't. The name Franfur _ doesn't ring a bell to me, but maybe I just didn't read their name the last time. 1, determine surprise. 2, split side initiative roll. Everyone makes a roll under dex check. Those who succeed act before the GM. aka fast initiative. Those who fail act afterwards, aka slow initiative. And I wouldn't say the GM, say the opponents, the enemies, adversaries. 3, players declare actions. 4, combat is resolved in the following phases, respecting initiative in each phase. And of these phases, we get movement, then ranged, then melee, then free. And then we have some notes. Actions in each phase are resolved according to initiative. So in the movement phase, first the PCs with fast initiative move, then the NPCs, then the PCs with slow initiative, and so forth. All creatures acting at a phase must resolve their actions before moving on to the next phase. That includes the NPCs. Using a ranged weapon or non-touch spells against someone in melee distance forces you to act on the melee phase. So a fighter can charge a bowman and force him to act in the melee phase. Ability checks like grappling or tossing an oil flask are resolved either the ranged or melee phase at GM discretion. The free phase is meant to solve the issue where you can't move, attack, then move again. All right, what do we got here? Let's see. Ian is all about that side initiative. And then also mentions, what if there are allies or multiple factions, though? Yes. So one of those is kind of a GM-facing issue, which is you have multiple friendly or hostile parties that are non-player parties. Where do they act? Presumably, you can roll your own initiative and that they all act in that big pool in the middle. So we could just say, okay, the players have fast and slow, all NPCs, regardless of whether they are kind or contrary from the PC's point of view, act in that middle blob, and then we as the GM could probably decide however we want to in what order they act. Maybe we could just use dex scores, or we could roll side initiatives for them, so on and so forth. That one's fairly easily resolvable. We don't know what Franfer underscore is suggesting for that, but probably not a big deal. The idea of that that ranged are forced to go on the round or on the order or in the phase that the target is in is kind of interesting. And I'm not sure whether, I mean, I kind of like it. Then I'm torn, right? Because part of having that ranged is that you're getting to things before they get to you. So that, for the example, the fighter can charge a bowman. Yeah, they can. And part of that charge is the danger of you're going to get shot before you get there. Like, that's the risk of charging the bowman. And so I don't know that I want to just give them this thing. Well, if you charge the bowman, you're going to have to act. They're going to have to act in the melee phase, giving you a chance to hit first. It's, if you want to charge the bowman, that's the risk that they're going to hit you. I mean, they might not be, because if we're depending on how we're figuring out things, they may have to act against somebody else. So, while I kind of like it from the aspect of, well, that's kind of an interesting way to do it, I kind of don't, because you got to take risks. And part of that risk is, yeah, you're running against somebody at range. Hey, what's the benefit of being in ranged? You get to hit them before they get to you, potentially, right? That's what being ranged is all about. You get to attack from range. So I don't like essentially negating that, even part of the time. Ian says, even in 5e, I feel like the initiative bonus doesn't usually account for much unless you get some extra bonus on it. I'd just rather roll a d6 per faction. And Ian also says, I also don't care much for phases. It's a lot to keep track of without slowing down combat. Yeah, the phases thing, I mean, I've gone through my I have like sort of a like-dislike on phases. In some ways I like it, in some ways I don't like it. When I was playing a play-by-post game, I really liked phases. It led to a lot of chaos in combat. But what I thought was fascinating, because you couldn't depend on being somewhere. You couldn't depend on, well, I'm going to run 10 feet to the fighter, or say 30 feet to the fighter, do my attack and do these things. Because you run 30 feet to the fighter, but then that fighter is running 20 feet in the other direction somewhere else. Suddenly you guys have kind of passed each other in the night. And granted, it did lead to some kind of like what the F moments as the fighter gets to where he thinks so-and-so is going to be and they're not there. It had this great kind of elements of chaos, but it worked better. It worked really well in the post format, because I could ask everybody. What I would do is say, okay, everybody, give me your actions. These are the things I'm doing. I'm running 30 feet. I'm swinging my sword, or I'm doing this thing. Okay. And then I could have all of that before me, and I would do the same thing. I would put what the creatures were all doing. Like, I would wait till after the PCs all posted theirs. I would post what all the creatures were going to do. Then we would roll initiative, and we would kind of go through and do all this stuff, and it led to this kind of really kind of cool. It really felt like these combats were all over the place. And whereas you could end up in these situations where you run past two ships past each other in the night often enough, you kind of have objectives that are matching. So the fighter's running at somebody, and that someone half the time was running towards you too. So it didn't I don't feel like in the time that I played that campaign it added too much chaos to make it like you couldn't count on anybody being anywhere. But it was kind of fun. Now playing in real time, I've been going back to the okay, you do the things you want to do, kind of end your turn. And while part of me would like to try out phased for it, and I've seen people do that, and it works okay. I think the other way works fine. It's just kind of do different flavors. Brian Smith says sides is good. I usually have lots of stuff going on in combat, so it becomes untenable to constantly augment the initiative track. And then Ian says, like in my BX game, I totally have a maneuver spelled out in a house rule doc about setting a spear versus a charge. But other than that, I don't think about it much. Don't think anyone has used that rule. I also will do the stuff like setting spears, kind of holding. I just kind of have like a general, you can make your action and hold it. I've been doing D6 for everybody. But I will lump enemies together, or I will lump. Sometimes it's fun also to have individual initiatives, but it is a lot to track. So my party has a bunch of hirelings right now, and I just have a D6 kind of like, okay, this is the roll for all the hirelings. But in the past, when it's been lower numbers, sometimes I've rolled them all out because you do get really fascinating things of, oh gosh, this is happening. Can this person act before that person acts? But I've also been doing it on just a combat level and not round by round. Though if I was using something that had a lot more management, I mean, this to me is where I would love to go with something like Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds, and maybe you can make it work in those tabletops. I haven't used them, I don't know, but get a lot of that. I don't care about the map stuff. I don't care about 2D, 3D, volumetric fog, lighting. I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't even care about having really the map at all. The stuff I would care about was, could I have all the stuff so I could have all the complex weapon versus armor tables and all these different kind of initiative things and phases really easy so that we could play with all that grit without having to manage it. And that's kind of where I would love them to go. Maybe they have gone that way, and I don't know. I cannot say. I do not know. Ian says, individual initiative becomes an issue when two players want to do something, but they aren't adjacent in initiative, and one has to wait for the other. Yeah, but to me, that's not an issue, or it's an issue, but it's not a bad kind of issue. To me, that's those kind of interesting decision issues. Do I wait or do I go? Hey, I want to do this. Yeah, I want to help you do that. All right, well, do you wait? Because if you wait, these three guys are going between you. If you don't act now, you may not be able to, or you wait, and it's at risk. And I like those risks. I like those interesting decision spaces of I can do it exactly the way I want to, but I might not get there in time, or I can try to do it a different way and get there, and maybe that'll be better, maybe that'll be worse. I don't know. See, so I like those. I don't see that as a problem. I guess I kind of see that as a feature. Do I hold my action and get things ready, or do I not? And I mentioned this briefly in that little short I did about my game, and it was the PC died, but that kind of came up as this timing of, well, I want to do this, but if I wait, then his timer towards death is going to tick down. So do I do something less? What I think is maybe has a worse chance of succeeding, but I got to do something. I kind of want to wait and line up, but I can't wait. Or if I wait, something bad might happen. And I actually appreciate that. All right. Well, that's it. That was opinions on split side initiative and combat phases. I'm just going to read. Well, I'll read one comment here because I'm already over time. But Unblade_M wrote a lengthy response. So can I get that upvoted? And they say, I don't see why you need the extra complexity of forcing ranged attacks to happen in the melee phase. From a realism perspective, it doesn't really make sense. And from a game perspective, is it even balancing? Personally, I would expect the archer's shot to happen while the fighter is moving forward, and therefore it makes sense that it is resolved before the melee attack. I also wonder why you feel the need for move, attack, move. I don't see why that is even necessary in a combat system. And in fact, it can introduce confusion and various edge case scenarios that risk slowing the game down as players argue over how is this case or that case supposed to work out. And so for that reason, I do not bother with it. Lastly, I think this kind of initiative system can work just fine. However, the real problem I see, and I don't think you've mentioned anything about it, is what happens when a combatant is locked in melee with an enemy, but wants to move away. I've never been a fan of attacks of opportunity because, again, they create slowdowns in play and edge case scenarios that lead to disagreements. But BXD&D has a serviceable solution to this problem in its defensive movement section, even though there's some openness to differing interpretations on how exactly this is supposed to work. Anyway, it's a wrinkle that I think you need to address in some form to get your initiative system working good. Ultimately, though, I prefer Mothership's initiative system or even just BX side initiative, even though it's not perfect and needs some extrapolation. But it is quite brutal and therefore keeps combat exciting. And then Franfer says those are all fair points. I'll give him an upvote, even though I'm not going to read all their responses. And Blade M, they get into a little discussion there. And then Autumn Coffee _ says, way too complex and the antithesis of OSR. Yeah, I don't get it. I'm not going to downvote you just because I disagree, as someone else has done, Autumn Coffee, but I wouldn't call it the antithesis of OSR. I don't get how you're getting that much. Kelos also took a downvote for calling it extremely fiddly and will add a huge amount of time to each combat and that they would never use it. I'm not sure I agree with that, but again, I don't know why that deserved a downvote for a differing opinion. But this is OSR Reddit, and OSR Reddit is a harsh mistress. All right, folks, that is it for another week of the OSR Reddit Roundup. You can give a thumbs up on the way out if you enjoyed this, and I hope you did. If you stuck around until now, I'd appreciate it. Oh, Ian says, back on the initiatives, Runehammer is a big fan of doing initiative around the table. Person to his left goes first. I mean, I guess that's fine. I don't know. Does that make a scramble to try to get the right seat next to the GM so you can go when you want to? I would even be, to me, it would even be cool if you could have the group roll dice and let them choose who goes when. I might actually try that you could have the group roll, as many 6-sided dice as there are players, and they can actually divvy them out how they like. It's kind of cool because it allows them some advantage that you get on the side initiative of the person who needs to go first can go first. But it also has that bit of you have to choose the numbers you rolled. So if you got let's say you have 4 players and 4 players, you rolled 6, 3, 2, 1, and the enemies are sitting on 5 and 4, that you can still have, I need to go first to do this thing I need to do. Great, you can go on 6. That still means that if you want to wait for somebody else and they're on the 3, some diciness. I might fool around with that. It might be an interesting thing to add some flexibility for the players if they feel like they need it. But also some of the things that I like. But hey, well, think about it. Ian says, that they think he did mention that players tend to sit in a certain strategic order. Yeah, I don't want it to make like who gets to me first gets to put there, or have to position, or if I'm playing virtually that I got to start dragging windows around. But I could see it. And then Alternative says that's a nice compromise for parties that like to make tactical plans. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that having kind of roll initiative or without side initiative eliminates your tactics. It just means you have to make considerations in terms of the battlefield for your tactics, which I think is what you want, because tactics don't exist in this perfected vacuum of you get to go exactly then, and you get to go exactly then, and you get to go exactly then. It's like, no, we got this kind of randomness. Any combat, any situation has just randomness put in there, and you may want to act first, but you don't. So how do you adjust to that? Then Brian Smith says, hey, Musical Slayers is fun game on its own, Can be. All right, folks, I'm going to let you go. Thanks, as usual, for hanging out. Tomorrow, look for me on Bandit Keep stream. I will update my forum, and I will update the channel, the community tab on YouTube, and I'm sure I'll post on Twitter and elsewhere whenever we get settled the link to the stream on Bandit Keeps. If for whatever reason something falls through and I don't get onto Bandit Keep tomorrow, I'll be back here doing something. But other than that, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you are watching or listening to this. Game on, and I will talk to you later. Cheers, everybody.